Hey guys, so Sean Smith here from PPC AMS Accelerator, and today we have a special guest. Um, you know, it's Brian Johnson, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. But just to give you guys a little bit of context about our relationship, when I was kind of like a little fetus in the Amazon PPC area, a little baby trying to figure it out, you know what I mean? I was just like a little thing. I I ended up finding Brian. And, at the time, he helped me with so much. I always say there were these three big mentors when I was kind of coming up who taught me things like pricing, client management, sent me, business that they didn't that wasn't qualified to work for them. And that was where I got started, man. And, back when we were kind of starting, it wasn't a huge community. So it was definitely more like a one-on-one type thing. Amazon advertising is different these days. It's way more, there's a lot more people involved. It's just gotten a lot bigger. But when we were doing it, we had a group that was like 10 people on Facebook. And, it was Brent, Brian, and Taylor who were kind of the guys I felt like in the beginning really fostered me and helped me come up. And so, man, to have him, do like an interview on my program is kind of like one of those things where you just kind of geeked, you're just like, this is going to be so cool. So that's enough about kind of like me and Brian. I'm going to let Brian introduce himself and then we'll go ahead and get started. So Brian, who are you and what do you do?
I'm nobody. No, I guess it's just kind of for those who have never heard of me, which is awesome. Love to meet you someday. I got back in the space. What is it now? 2014, I guess it was, right? So back in 2014, the Amazon space, I spent about another 7 years prior to that selling on eBay. And when I got into the Amazon space, I was selling my own products, and then I started being asked by one of my friends who had a big 800 SKU beauty brand on Amazon, and they said, "Hey, can you help us, with marketing, advertising?" And I got in there and said, "You bet I can." Didn't have a clue what I was doing, nothing. I'm like, can you even bid on keywords? Is there advertising? Yeah, okay, actually there is advertising. Okay. Jumped in, and so then I did the same thing that a lot of you probably do, is you start searching around, asking questions for people who have answers. Well, back when we started, nobody had the answer. So we kind of came in, and we I think you were probably one of the original members of the Amazon PPC troubleshooting group on Facebook.
Yes.
Back when I had, and there was like 50 of us, I think, in that group. And basically everybody, we're all in there. It's like, okay, well, how does this work? And we're like, we don't know. Here's what Amazon tells us. Exactly. And there was no training whatsoever. There was no software on the market. There was nothing. Amazon training was just useless. And of course, it was a very, very basic system, basically. Yep. Automatic campaigns and like broad match keyword ads. That was it. Like, there wasn't anything. So we started collaborating, and as the group started growing, because sellers started piling into this thing and started asking questions.
Yep.
After a while, I had to start, answering a lot of these questions. So I had to start researching all this stuff myself and coming up with solutions and doing my own testing and everything, because people kept asking. And the more I answered their questions, the more people asked, and that just perpetuated for the last 5-6 years.
Yep.
So in that time, I created solutions, including the first dedicated ad platform, the PPC Scope, which has been surpassed by dozens and dozens of newer technology solutions, of course, over the years. Created a course, Academy. We did that for 3 years, and ran a lot of students through that, as far as like, how to set up the ads and everything. Yep. And of course, the advertising agency, Canopy Management,
yep,
is kind of the flagship now. We've got, 50, 55 employees, something like that, in that range. In the agency. Cool. Yeah, so it's been this huge growth curve. And I guess to date, I kind of went back and kind of took a look at it. It's like, okay, how many people did I actually coach with or actually help directly, not just in passing, but help with directly? And it's over 20,000
Wow.
brands that sell on Amazon. I'm like going, oh man, I've been doing this too long.
Telling you, man. No, it's
But
so, dude, it's so funny how you mentioned, back kind of when we were starting, there was no real content. There was really nothing out there. And I remember
YouTube channels or, you know,
you were kind of the first one who's kind of was the one who's going out there talking about it. And the reason I know that is because, and maybe I'm off, but I remember like years ago being in my car, listen, and this was my early Amazon days where I was just podcast after podcast after podcast. For those who've been in a while, they might know like the amazing seller, Scott, Scott Volker. So this is back in the, yeah. So this is back in the day, man. And I remember you, Brian, were one of the kind of the people that I was kind of listening to because you were going on podcasts and doing stuff. And you were kind of the only one who was talking about it a lot more than like in that, like advertising itself. And so I remember being in my car listening to one of your podcasts. And yeah, man, it's crazy how it's evolved so quickly in such a short time period. It's almost like, I don't know, it's like night and day compared to back in the day.
yeah, and honestly, I think probably I didn't start actually doing the podcast until I was probably at least a year and a half, 2 years into this, as
Wow.
far as studying advertising. So a lot of it, I mean, I literally, so my business partner, he actually found me and hired me for a half-hour coaching session on on his own campaigns. Back when I was charging, it was like $35 an hour for coaching. It's changed.
Yeah.
um, but the point on that is, it's like everybody had to come from somewhere. Everybody had to get their 10,000 hours in order to get to this
Yep.
kind of level. And
Yep.
I'm just glad that I didn't, just completely burn out about it. I got really hyper focused on Amazon advertising. I will say is that I am very passionate about like listing optimization and conversion rate optimization, really focusing the message to the audience now a
Yeah.
lot more than I was before. And
Gotcha.
then secondarily using the advertising in order to support that, because it definitely works hand in hand.
It
Definitely
does.
makes
Huge.
conversion rates increase.
Oh,
Um,
a lot of the students I work with, I can even think of one where, um, kind of his method is like increase that USP, man, unit session percentage, because the cost goes down, the you
Profit goes up.
yeah, profit goes up, clicks are more affordable in a
Yeah.
lot of cases. Dude, yeah, I agree with that one, man. That listing optimization is overlooked. I think I was actually literally talking to somebody, I think yesterday or the day before, where I was talking about how like I feel like a big miss is that like a lot of people think it's more traffic, but they don't spend enough time optimizing the traffic that they already have. Because
Right.
when you do both, they come hand in hand, because Amazon's going to want to give you more traffic if you're more optimized. And so it's, a ton of energy is spent on more traffic. But, in the beginning, I feel like when they launch, they'll really focus on it. But, over time, they don't continue to be like, how do we eke out another percentage point, which is
Yeah.
huge when you're dealing with tons of sessions.
Especially as you scale. Yeah. I mean, as the competition gets more dense,
Yep.
and the competition, it gets harder, it gets more expensive. That's something that you and I both speak about quite a bit these
Yep.
days is most Amazon has introduced so many different ad types that allow us to acquire market share and defend our ad space and, target different audiences in different locations and settings. And yet most brands that we talk to on a daily basis, maybe 20-25% at most of the ad types that are available are being used by most of these brands. They're like, they just don't know. They don't have the training. They didn't put anybody through like your training, for instance, to say like, okay, what can we do with
Yep.
the advertising?
And
So
2020 was a big year for features and ad types. I mean, 2020 was, I was trying to keep up, man. I was I was like,
well,
holy
it's
smokes.
yeah, it's like Prime Day and Cyber Monday kind of rolled up and amplified throughout the entire year. It kind of exposed the strengths and weaknesses of the ad platform, and shipping logistics is an obvious one, but certainly from an advertising standpoint, it was so much easier to test theories. You're big on R&D like I am. It's like
Yeah.
to test theories and to try to come up with something brand new that
Yep.
nobody's seen on a regular basis is sometimes you got strategies that only work on high traffic days like Prime Day or Cyber Monday.
Yep.
Well, 2020, it's like there was a lot more traffic. There was a lot more e-commerce going on, a lot more shipping going on. And so it was a little bit easier to to test some of these strategies because you actually had the volume, at least until the products ran out of stock.
It's a whole nother, yeah.
And then not so much.
I know, dude. I know. And well, I felt like for 2022, it was a lot of new features and stuff rolled out too. I felt like,
Yeah.
So that was a big one, kind of trying to keep up with it. So Brian, okay, question. How did you find the accelerator? And what was the reason for investing in the program? What value did you see in it, and what came out of it, and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I mean, it primarily came from you as far as like how I found it. I've always collaborated with you. I've always followed you. I've always trusted you as far as your knowledge in the space and your experience. And so, especially in the early days, like you said, there were very few of us that we could actually have a discussion with each other and talk at the same level. Yep. Because everybody else was just listening in and taking notes. It's like, okay, that doesn't help me. It doesn't help you, but we would get on, we'd talk about like, hey, what do you think about this? Well, things have changed. Things have definitely grown. We've got our consultant 100, group, but there are now, thousands of PPC experts out in the world.
Yep.
A little air quote going on there.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was
the Wild West
because I trusted you. I was familiar with you. Obviously, you've got a personality that I'm jealous of, that's just out there and just energetic, and people are like, well, man, it's fun hanging out with Sean. And so
get out of here. The ego is not big enough for this office. Jeez.
Oh, my head's getting heavy. No,
I'll be back, guys.
Hold on, I gotta get a stand.
Oh man.
That's kind of how my wife teases me. It's like, oh, you're the Brian Johnson. Oh, shut up. No, but honestly, it was because, I mean, I didn't have to search for it. I just, as soon as you came out with it, I'm like, it's like, I want to see what he's got going on there.
Cool.
And frankly, it comes down to, because like I said, it's like, I do have my own course and I have my agency team, the staff that goes through my course.
Yep.
But I'm the kind of person that every time I'm commuting, I'm always listening into my peers. I'm listening to other people who are up and coming, who are stating strategy, and listening to YouTubes and podcasts and new content that gets published all the time, because I just I may hear the same thing that I already know 100 times.
Yep.
You hear one new nugget, and you're like, well, it's like sometimes I'm like, it's like, oh wow, I didn't even think about it that way, which does happen.
Yep.
More so with your content, of course. But then, there's other times where somebody will state something like on a podcast, for instance, like, well, you don't quite understand how the algorithm works. So that's not quite how that works. However, how would I make it work if I did apply what you think, how it works, just to try to figure it out. It's kind of like when, it's almost as a challenge. And so anytime that I get a chance to listen to either somebody that's upcoming or somebody that I respect very much, like yourself, and let alone, dig into an entire course, it's a great opportunity for me to, refresh my skills and kind of revisit things that maybe I've dismissed over a while because I'm going back to the basics and I'm relearning it. It's all staying focused. Now, most people probably don't have that kind of time, but because my expertise is focused in on the Amazon advertising and marketing side of the house, I'm not filling my head with, like, what are the FBA shipping logistics? I've got my own brands, but most of that stuff I don't deal with. I deal with where I'm best at, where you're best at. And so primarily I got in, I said, it's okay, I want to know what what you're teaching, what you're focused on with your own students, with your own clients. And frankly, it gave me a second course in order to hand over to my own agency team and say, okay, once you're done with mine, now go out and learn from Sean. We've got two different voices, two different perspectives that we're coming after. It helps to kind of balance their training, because frankly, sometimes they're just going to get tired of hearing my voice and they want somebody who actually is interesting to listen to. And so it's like, oh yeah, no, I learned this over an accelerator. I'm like, cool. As long as you learned it.
As long as you learn it.
Or somebody will say, it's like, hey, what do you think about this? I go, you know what? That's something that Sean and I had discussed probably years ago. And honestly, I completely forgot about it. Let's go back and let's dig it back up again. Let's throw
Yep.
it over to our R&D team and then just start testing again, see how it works now.
Yep.
So sometimes it's a case of, it's a back to basics. It just has huge value is not only back to basics, but also not to diminish anything, of course, there's a back to basics, but then there's also, challenging ourselves and our own expertise to say, do we know all the intermediate and advanced tactics that are being used by other people? And so that's obviously some, the value that we get out of, through Accelerator too is, okay, what are some of the intermediate and advanced tactics? But let's not forget to go back to the basics
Yep.
and revisit some things that maybe we've overlooked or dismissed over time.
Yep.
And sometimes, look at gold panning. You and I collaborated on creating gold panning, and that was something that I had started out with just like, oh, here's how you do it with a keyword campaign. And he said, like, well, you can do it with brand ads. And then of course, now we're like going, you can do it on everything. And that's part of our normal practice within the agency.
ASIN gold panning.
Was that?
ASINs with product target gold panning. I mean, you can
exactly. Yep. And some of those work phenomenally well. And so it's no wonder why you've got others who have purchased your course and gone through your course, either in the past or very recently, that like, wait a minute, you know all this stuff. It's like, yeah, but I'm going to go back through it again and again and again and again and again until I find every single little nugget that I can think of what's working now, and continue to. That's how we always continue to get better. Each of us at this tier, at this level, is how do we continue to challenge ourselves to be, the top of the top, like.
Yep. And one thing that I like that you said before a while back, you were talking about how it's when you listen to everybody and you'll hear something like over and over again. I even like to hear it again because we're like, we kind of think similar, like you said, scientific method. And, when you think of like data, it's just another data point. So if you hear it 101 times, it's reinforced. 102 times, it's reinforced. You know what I mean? So hearing it, even the same stuff is valuable because it especially from, obviously you qualify the person, whether or not that person is qualified to give that type of information. But that extra data point is like, okay, I've been doing this for a while. I've heard it from the majority. This is another data point that I can tack on. That's, it's kind of like you're getting new stuff, but you're also adding to your data set over time, which makes it stronger. So that when you hear a counterpoint, you want to come back and be like, okay, well, I heard this. Here's the data for this. I hear this small counterpoint. What's going on? How do we reconcile this conflict? You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the beauty of like listening, is like, you'll hear the same stuff over and over again. And for me, I think a lot of people think it's boring, but for me, it's reinforcement. Most people it's like tedious, but for me, it's like, okay, I'm stacking data.
Look, I mean, audio, video, all these things, it's like, you can adjust the speed on it to whatever. If I'm talking too slow, you speed me up to 125% and you're good.
Yeah, that's true.
If Sean's doing it, then you back it down to 95%. Every little thing. So,
it's true.
I mean, it's like, there shouldn't be any excuse for making the time to go through and revisiting topics, especially, I mean, if you're brand new to the advertising, then go back and go through the core studies and the basic stuff. Don't worry about the advanced stuff. Just go back to, the most critical things, like this is the Pareto. This is the 20% that you really should focus on right now.
Yeah.
Don't try to do everything. Don't try to get, shiny object and say, oh, I'm going to do all the advanced stuff. It's like, don't worry about the advanced stuff. Get the basics right first.
Yep.
So if you're going to do anything else, I mean, go back through Accelerator and look at all the, the foundational, videos and training again and again and again until it just sinks in your head. I mean,
and it leads to those epiphanies. You know what I mean? Like I always find for me, innovation happens while I'm doing like a uploading, like I'm working on a bulk file. And then I'm just looking at information and I'm doing some like foundational thing. And then I'm like, interesting. You know what I mean? I start to kind of like, that's where it happens, man. I'll be sitting there staring at advertising console, looking at bulk files, maybe doing software. And then I'm just like, I wonder if I did this, what would happen. And then I can just create a new procedure, because the foundations are, they're the starting point. And then when you make those decisions for more advanced stuff, you know, like the better your foundations, maybe the better your new idea would be as well, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else, Brian, for anybody?
No, I mean, I was going to say, I mean, you and I could chat all day long. I think one of the things that's
Yeah.
probably most frustrating to innovators and to authors like ourselves is when people don't apply what they learn. It's like, well, I got the course, therefore my job's done. It's like, no. It's like, don't even bother if you're not going to apply it. Because if you don't apply it, then you're not going to have that success story. Then we can come back and say, hey, look what you did. Congratulations. Because ultimately, that's what we want for you. That's what, we want you to have that success. And, I mean, obviously, Sean, you brought me in here. I've got nothing to gain out of this other than simply just paying it back to you for the value that you've added to me and my team. So
A favor.
I appreciate it.
A favor.
The favor.
The favor. The favor. Right, Brian? The favor. Oh no. I was like, man, like I was like thinking about it. I was like, I want to get, because you were like, if you need anything from me, Sean, when we did that interview, and I was just like, it was like Friday night. I was sitting in my office. It's winter, so it's dark, and it's like 7 p.m. and I'm just spinning in my chair, staring at the wall. And then for some reason, my brain was like, well, I'm going to ask
I've got a favor to call in.
Dude, I was like, yo, Brian, like got on the Facebook Messenger, and I was like, hey, Brian, I figured out a favor.
I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, dude. So I was like super geeked when you said yes. I was like, this one's going to be, this one's going.
Yeah, well, you made this easy for me too, because I mean, I certainly know what you've produced, what you've put together. I know the value of it. I definitely recommend it. So, yeah, you made it easy for me. It wasn't really a hard favor.
The product's good. The product's good.
It's good. Yeah. I endorse this product.
Yeah. You heard it here first, folks.
That's right.
Yeah. So Facebook, yeah, dude, Brian, everywhere. This could be a 3-hour, with the tangents that we could go on.
Sometimes we do, but yeah.
Yeah, dude. All right, guys. So thank you guys so much for watching the student interview with Brian. And Brian, if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you?
I mean, I usually what I point to people to is either my website, brianrjohnson.com. My other companies, of course, that I'm actively promoting these days would be the agency. That's canopymanagement.com.
Cool.
So yeah, and of course, I mean, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Clubhouse these days too. So
that's a whole nother beat. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. So thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you later.